Phil, have you seen The Big Lebowski?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. See,
Of course.
of course, right?
What is this? What?
John's getting down on himself because he has seen movies that he thinks he's supposed to have seen. Like,
yeah, I've never seen The Big
like
Lebowski.
Monsters Inc. or The Big Lebowski or
Oh,
but
we're guilty. Everybody's guilty of not seeing something. So
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's just John. You just happen to have a life, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Primarily Critical of Movies at an After Party. This would be it.
if you have not seen this film, we suggest that you do so before listening any further.
Because we've got spoilers, trivia, and opinions like crazy, and we cannot wait to share them.
Good, bad, new, old, weird, or gross.
We will pass judgment on them all.
Today, you're going to have to speak up. I can't hear you over this metal. My name is Steve. I'm here with
Phil?
John. Wow, we're getting good at that, Phil. Saying at the same time, you know.
Oh.
Today we're talking about Sound of Metal. And this is Phil's pick. Phil, are you happy with your pick?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
I like a good music movie, you know, like A Star is Born, Whiplash. We've covered a few of these movies now. And maybe didn't like Crossroads, but we'll move on from that. This was a totally unique movie. And it's amazing from the point of view of sound design and looking into the world of deafness, the disabilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well acted.
Overcoming adversity.
Oh yeah, and not necessarily the Hollywood ending that some movies have. This movie kind of ended with, you know, unresolved.
It did, yeah.
What did you guys think?
I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was really well done. You know, sad. You know, it was. You know, and yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's a musician or a music lover's worst fear. You know?
Absolutely, guys. To me, loss of hearing would probably be my biggest fear. Absolutely. I don't know how you guys feel about losing hearing, or, you know, who want to lose any sense? If, you know what?
Well, honestly, I this movie changed my opinion of all that. This guy has some serious issues. He's on the run, kind of. He's living out of a mobile home. He has some addiction in his past, but we're not dealing with any of that. We're not even dealing with his girlfriend with scars on her wrist. We're not dealing with any of that. This guy loses his hearing, and the most interesting spin on this whole movie is that we get a glimpse into deaf culture, and they've, as a majority of people, don't consider themselves disabled, and it's very counterintuitive for somebody who spends a lot of time hearing. So like this, the blind culture isn't like that. You know, people that can can't smell, can't taste, can't touch, and all that stuff. It's not the same. Deaf people.
Well, and there's huge different. Okay, here's another thing: is that Laurie's family, she has a huge amount of her relatives are deaf, and so like, and I mean a lot, and so family gatherings, you know, where it's just bizarre because you won't hear, like, I'll be in another room and it's just you hear nothing in the other room but thumping. When a deaf person's trying to get the attention of someone across the table, they'll like hit the table or cause vibration to get them to look at them, right?
Yeah.
I was forgetting what I was going. I had a point with this.
It's okay.
I don't know. I can't remember what I was going with.
Well, I think what I hear you're saying is that this movie to me depicts that world better than anything I've ever seen on film. Like the communication and the sound use of sound.
I remember where I was going with this. There's a huge difference between someone who was born deaf and someone who spent their life hearing and had to become deaf. Right.
Yeah.
They
had a term for that, right? Late deafness.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a technical term or what, but I mean it's just you're right. These of Laurie's family's relatives that were born deaf, they'd never look at a disability. That's just their life. That's the way they are.
That's their reality, right? It's a different thing
Absolutely.
when you lose something that you had. I mean,
and what's interesting is we've seen her with there's two deaf parents that gave birth to hearing children. Now imagine that, raising hearing children as deaf, right? Being deaf. It's amazing to watch. These kids will, the little girl there, she was signing away, and she's just this little girl, right? Signing away to her parents and trying to get the parents' attention with her hands, and signing and communicating and stuff. But yeah, it's quite a whole different society and a different community that I think hearing people really don't know exists.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. That was very eye-opening for me. I mean, I know very few deaf people, but they don't consider themselves disabled at all. And you said it yourself, Phil, so eloquently. I mean, it would be devastating. I mean, imagine if I could never hear. Oh my God! I know.
Oh. And didn't you think how Ruben handled it? I looked at this movie from beginning to end and how it worked out, and I was on my edge of my seat, kind of like, what is Ruben gonna do at the end of this, right? Yeah. And I feel like I would have probably done a lot of the same things Ruben did if this happened to me. I feel like I would have. He tried to salvage his career. He tried to salvage his relationship. He did the best he could. He went through with the program. He went through with it. And then at some point, he's like, I got to do something. And he wanted the implants, and he went through with it. And don't know if it worked out like 100% like he would hope, but he kept trying. And it's inspiring in that way.
Well, those cochlear implants, they actually showed the shortcomings of even like hearing aids and stuff, right? A lot of this stuff, hearing aids have come a long ways, but the general idea, the design is just to be able to communicate. That's what the world really looks as is important, right?
Yeah.
But for a musician, it's a whole different level, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're giving up your career, your passion and stuff. And so, the technology hasn't really gotten there to make that a viable option, Well, that became painfully obvious in this movie,
It's getting there, John. And I've seen the lead singer from AC/DC.
Brian Johnson?
Yeah, Brian Johnson had he had loss of hearing to the point that he didn't think he was going to carry on, but he got some kind of surgery. And he's worked it back to the point where he can function. And I would imagine there's like you're not going to have it back completely. And I think they tried their best to show you that in the movie, right?
Yes.
I would think that I would take that as better than nothing. But it's pretty terrible for a musician still.
He was listening to his girlfriend sing with her dad. And I think that's where it was like,
it was quite good and terrible.
He saw everybody enamored with the song, and he knew that it was being done well, but he couldn't. It just wasn't there.
would you still? I would still take that over not hearing at all. Like,
well, yeah.
In time,
he can always just take it off, right? I mean,
well, and he does that at the end of the movie, and so poignantly, right? At the end of the movie, he sits still, and he's just silent, like Joe, the guy at the rehabilitation place, right? Joe, who did an awesome job of acting, right? That guy, the guy that lost his hearing in the Vietnam.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether all those actors were actually deaf. Probably.
I think a lot of them were. The Joe's character actor, his parents were both deaf. He was raised by deaf parents, so he signs, and in real life he's like a American Sign Language certified guy.
Okay.
Right? So
Paul Racy or
yeah.
Okay, okay, all right.
So can you imagine like growing up with parents? Like I think John alluded to earlier, like what a weird existence. Like we take it for granted that we all have our senses, but a lot of people don't have that, right?
Well, it's interesting. Like what we learned about in that family where the parents were deaf and the kids were not, is that the kids, we get together at family functions, and they knew everything about how much their parents owed on the mortgage. They knew how much they had to pay every month for their phone bills, and all this stuff, because the kids are handling this stuff. The kids have to deal on the telephone when they got to call MTS about, and the parents are like pointing to things to the children, like this is what our mortgage says, and this is, and they're communicating to their children. You have to ask them this, you have to phone this number, and you got to tell them this, and so this is the kind of thing.
There's no respect for the disability of people with deafness in a lot of ways until like recently, and as you see in the movie. Joe can speak with a microphone hooked up to a computer, and they can interpret speech. Right? These things didn't exist probably like 5 years ago.
Oh, and you know what revolutionized the deaf community is texting, because now a deaf person can go in a room of hearing people, and if they have to, they don't have to break out pens and papers and stuff. They can just get everyone's phone number, and if they want to ask them a hearing person something that doesn't know how to sign, they just text them, and they're sitting across the table, but so what? They're still communicating.
Absolutely,
right?
Exactly.
I didn't think of that, and that's totally revolutionary. There's a lot of things.
I think a lot of what's happening right now in the world is probably going to change things even further, because you can do a lot more right now through emails than you could have ever done previous.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Phil. Go ahead.
Oh no, Steve. That's fine. I wonder. Did you feel this movie at all did a disservice to the deaf community? That Ruben's character just kind of like moved on to the treatment. Like he just was so desperate to get this medical word.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think the deaf community would totally understand that a hearing person, and they've all probably seen it, because you got to remember the deaf community are going to be very familiar with people that weren't deaf that have become deaf, because it's a small community, right? In every city, it's like, if you know one deaf person, you probably know another, it's like, oh, my relative's deaf, your relative's deaf. They probably know each other, and they probably do, because they all hang out the same centers. It's a community, right? So they've all seen people that have come in that are not used to being deaf, and they would be very familiar with that's absolutely the route that a person that's not used to being deaf would go. So I think they did no disservice. I think that was realistic, and deaf people would recognize that. They've seen it before. This isn't a news story to deaf people. It's a news story to us.
Yeah.
You don't think that the deaf community might see him as a bit of a tourist? They might snub their nose at him.
Did you think the movie? Did you to me? I was really on the edge of thinking, how's this movie going to end? Did you guys feel a sense of dread?
Especially with the time that's remaining, I thought, there's so much more that needs to happen. Yeah, we're running out of time, and so
And so how did you feel with the ending, guys?
Oh, I liked it. I really liked it, and it was It was so brilliant. I mean, they showed that what's his name, Ruben, that he had matured to a point where he was like, this girl is going to be better off without me.
Yeah,
that
was touching.
Yeah, it's like he went right in. He went all in. He was like, let's get back to what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then she didn't even say anything. She just had a bit of a scratch on her arm and then a bit of a nervous twitch. And he's like, you know what? You've already done so much for me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it was quite a moment. I thought that was very touching too. Yeah.
Yeah. At that moment, it's like, you know what? It's just, I understand now. 4 years we kept each other's sobriety. We tried to make a go of the music business. We tried to.
Yeah.
And what did we get? We're living in a mobile.
It was an Airstream. Let's be fair here. It was an Airstream.
It was a very nice, very nice vehicle.
And like wham bam, he had to deal with losing his hearing, and he had to come to grips with all of it. So hard, so quick in this movie. Yeah. So I think we're left at the end thinking he doesn't know. He's dealing with it still. So, wow.
It was interesting that he had a sign for his name, and they made it clear in the movie that people do that. They have a sign language sign for their name, but obviously, if they wouldn't be able to pronounce it. It's not pronounceable, right? It's just a gesture that means you, right?
Right.
And I thought that was really cool. We got some unique looks into that kind of in that world,
Yeah.
Really,
well, what's also there's that the world is actually the deaf community is amazing because there's actually different dialects, right? We all think, oh, there's just American Sign Language, right?
Yeah.
But did you know that Canadian Sign Language is quite different from American Sign Language?
I could imagine. Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, and so Laurie and I we're trying to learn to communicate with some of our relatives. We're get all these books on American Sign Language, and they of course they understand American Sign Language, but one of the deaf guys he goes to me, it's like he's trying to explain. Well, he's got the kid there interpreting it, and he goes, he's trying to say that American Sign Language is like chatter, 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 right? It's not getting to the point, right? It's going overboard. You're doing way too many signs to just get to something that you get to a lot faster, right? And so they gave us a book that's actual. I don't know what sign language is, but it's one that is what they would say. That's much better, So,
well, I've heard this about. I don't think you covered this in the trivia, but I've heard this about sign language, is that it's more direct than humans talking, because it cuts through the avoidance. It's like I'm telling you, this is what's going down.
Yeah.
And they don't have people that sign language are direct with what they gotta say.
Yes. Well, yeah, and they say when their kids start translating what they're saying, it's exactly what you're saying. They say very things that you don't go, wow, that was blunt.
That's what I mean.
And it's like, and their jokes are even really blunt. Like back when I met Laura, I was really skinny, right? And this is the first time I'm meeting her relatives. I walk up and one of them says something, and I looked at Laurie's dad, he says you're skinny, and I'm like, yeah. He goes, he says it's because of too much sex.
Wow. So John, you obviously had some real life experience, and it's such a cool thing to relate this to the movie. And
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far off from the movie, but yeah.
But no, but it's all really ties into it, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this movie, to me, it's well, you and I, Phil, we love music. You too, Steve. I mean, you come from we all come from musical families, and this is it's hard. It's hard to imagine losing that, and I think that's.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, I've put some dicey time in playing music at extreme volumes, and I come away with some nights where I was ringing in my ears for the going to sleep.
Yeah.
And I after watching this movie, I appreciate that I didn't somehow have this issue. And then I see movies where people are shooting guns off close to their heads and stuff, and there's no sound protection. I think it's ridiculous, how underappreciated loss of hearing could be with extreme volume, and if the kids don't appreciate that,
I love my loud music. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right, and I know I paid a price for it. My hearing's not the best, and this is an eye opener and stuff. But one of the things I will say is that the crashing of a cymbal is deadly to the ears.
Yeah.
There's that high, they say that high pitched range is so damaging. And when you think about drummers, and we know drummers, I mean, we've been close to a drummer that lost his hearing, right? And that, the pounding of that cymbal so close in proximity to your ear, I mean, it's just going to do it. You got only so many years you can do that. That's the reality of it.
But there's a lot of work hazard place, not just musicians. There's a lot of people that are in environments where they could lose their hearing over time, and it's sad because it's a lot of it's preventable. This guy, I mean, wow,
drummers put earplugs in. That's it. You gotta
take care of yourself because no one else is gonna take care of you.
Everybody take care of their hearing because this movie is like the movie about hearing loss, I guess, because there really is no other movie about hearing loss. So
I'm sure there's one somewhere.
But you're right. This is the first time. I mean, there's other movies about being deaf, but
there was a moment in the movie where he goes to the doctor, and the doctor puts him through a bunch of tests, and the last thing the doctor says to him is, "Your first responsibility is to preserve the hearing you have." And then there's a smash cut, and the next scene is going.
He was that desperate to keep the train rolling, I guess, right? He thought
denial too, right? Denial is always a big thing, right?
It's like, it'll heal up, I'll get better. He didn't believe. Well, who would? I mean, that's just ridiculous thing to think you could lose your hearing like that. But he probably, at that point in time, he's probably built up 15 years of extreme volume drumming. So he was heading for a disaster down the road, the way he was going, I think.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on that, but for sure.
Yeah.
Not a big surprise that he could lose hearing.
Have you found yourself in situations, and I'm sure you have, Phil, where you felt like, oh my God, I'm exposing myself to extreme volume.
Oh yeah,
that is damaging to my ear.
Oh yeah. But like I said, I've gone to sleep with my ears ringing.
Yeah.
At times, and I'm like, this is weird, and it just, you worry that is it gonna go away? Is it going to stop? And it did, thankfully. But for some people, it never goes away. That's a whole another thing they didn't even really get into. Tinnitus, right? Where you're hearing a tone always, right? There's hearing problems with that. And there's the deafness that we hear with people in this movie, him, all his high frequencies were gone. All he could hear was both, levels that are so low it's like thumping and vibration.
Yeah.
And
wow,
they did such a good job of trying to make us understand hearing loss in this movie.
Yeah,
they really do.
Yeah,
they do a good job.
Now we haven't really we're talking a lot about deafness. We haven't talked a lot about. Is there any particular scenes? I mean, obviously we talked about the one where he let her go, but what about in his progression in the deafness? Any particular scenes that stand out to you?
Oh, for sure. The scene where Ruben's talking with Joe and Ruben's like saying, you know, I might need some money to help me
Oh yeah,
get back. It was crushing because Joe had to like say, man, this just isn't gonna work. You look like you're an addict again.
You sound like an addict. Yeah.
That was it for me, right? It was like, wow.
Yeah. It broke Joe's heart too, right? I mean,
and you could see it. What a great job there! Like it's such this movie was pretty simple outside of like, you know, it kept it pretty small and tight to the story of the people that mattered. You didn't even know much about Ruben's backstory. You don't know anything. Like
no.
You know, he was sober for 4 years and he never relapsed, which was interesting and
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing, yeah. 4 years, I mean, that might sound like a lot, but, you know, when you're dealing with something as big as losing your hearing, it seems, you know.
I really thought that, like, when he said, I've been sober for 4 years, and he said, well, how long have you two been together? 4 years. I thought for sure he's going to keep them together. But I guess that's not how his program works.
Yeah. That was pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
But
he knew what he was doing, right? These people weren't just deaf; they had pre-existing conditions.
Oh well, yeah.
Anyway, should we get into this trivia? The plot of the main characters are based on Derek Fine-France's unfinished docu-film Metalhead, in which the drummer of a heavy metal duo blows his eardrums out and must learn to adapt to a world of silence. Cine-France's film was in post-production since 2009, and it stars Jasifer's band members and real-life couple Edgar Livengood and Giselle Amber Valentine playing themselves. Doris Marder was one of the screenwriters for Derek Cinefrance's The Place Beyond the Pines in 2012. Marder was personally asked by Cinefrance's to rework Metalhead from the beginning, and he also gave him his blessing. I'm so sorry for butchering your guys' names. Please comment. This is not unusual. I normally butcher names. Now I'm not going to read anymore because that one was really long, and I've made myself uncomfortable.
What? Jeez, that is the longest trivia ever. It's just long ones. I don't even know what to say.
Who's got the next two piece?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that this was. I kind of almost wish that had the docu-fiction film had come out. You know, I mean, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, this is good. It's not to take away from this. I just kind of like to see that as well. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah.
Like, I think at the heart of this is based on a sort of a true story.
Yeah.
And I can totally see it. There's so many people that have blown out their hearing for the love of music or work. So, wow, you know, I'm happy finally there's a movie that takes deafness seriously and a portrayal of the world. So I'll take that.
Darius.
So who's got next trivia? Easy one.
That's how you pronounce it.
Sure. Riz Ahmed learned American Sign Language for the film. ASL.
Yeah.
That's Ruben. You had to learn it.
I wonder how long it takes when you really have to communicate with people. You got to get with it or you don't. So
yeah, it's interesting that you can learn. Like one of the things that Lori and I both knew, we haven't seen her relatives for quite some time now, but was the alphabet. And once you have the alphabet down, you can communicate. It just might be slower. You're spelling things out, right? But and so I don't know how far he went in American Sign Language, right? But obviously he learned enough, certainly to do the lines he had to do in the movie. But whether he's like fluent where he can say everything, I wonder that.
Well, I think
question that
also
one.
if he if you're not doing anything other than prepping for a movie,
Yeah,
I mean, I think you can accomplish quite a bit.
it's true.
If you're a good actor, like you can bulk up, you can get fat.
We've seen these guys become muscular. We've seen them become fat. We've seen them lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
Well,
if somebody says, "Listen, I'm going to pay you $1 million to make a movie, and you don't have to do anything for 6 months except, prepare,
learn sign language, lose weight, get muscular."
They got people probably watching to make sure you get your shit together. Yeah. So that leads to the next trivia. Riz Ahmed spent 6 months learning the drums for this film.
Wow. So he had to do a lot. He had to learn sign language and he had to learn how to play drums.
Yeah.
Just for this role. And that's commitment. That's,
And there wasn't a lot of drumming in the movie. There wasn't a lot of his music career, but there were some cool moments. Like there was a scene where he's tapping out some rhythms on a slide in the park.
Yeah.
That was cool. Like,
that was cool.
Touching things.
Yeah, the kid
was.
Want
me to take this?
Yes, please.
Okay. Initially, during sections of the movie where Ruben is struggling to reconcile his hearing loss, Riz Ahmed wore auditory blockers deep inside his ear canal that emitted white noise. He told USA Today, "I couldn't hear anything, including the sound of my own voice." After some time, he decided to forego the sound blockers and simply enmesh himself in deaf culture. Enmesh? Boy, I'm caught up in that one. Sorry. Enmesh himself in deaf culture by communicating with the director and deaf cast almost exclusively through ASL. So, big commitment, this guy. Real deal,
He tried actually being deaf.
Well, he didn't like it, barely.
He didn't like it. Well, I wouldn't like it either.
No.
I mean,
it's a far departure from who he is, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
It'd be frightening. I'm terrified of losing that sense of hearing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and this movie just wow.
Yeah.
My dad's going deaf.
How old's your dad now?
Well, he's in his 70s now. He was a band teacher, junior high band teacher, and so loud noises all around all the time. But he's not going to go. He's not deaf, and he's not going to go deaf. He's lost a lot of his hearing, and I need to yell. I need to yell at him if I want to communicate.
And he's got hearing aids, and you still need to yell at him, or
He doesn't like them. He doesn't like to wear them.
That's a common thing, right?
So whenever I'm with him and we're at the cabin and his wife isn't around, then I know his hearing aids are not in his ears. Yeah. And so I have a volume. And I speak at that volume.
Yeah.
And other people find it a little bit surprising, but
there's something to be said for communicating with a hard of hearing person. It forces you to come out of a shell that many of us don't always come out of. Like our neighbor was almost just like I had to practically yell to communicate with her. So the whole neighborhood could hear anytime I'm like, "Hi, Mary, how are you today? Oh, okay, how's Bill doing? And stuff." And I kind of liked it because it made me come out of a shell where I kind of always like to be more private with my conversations, but it made me force it made me more extroverted. It's like, the whole neighborhood's listening to me yell at you as this conversation, and so there's something, there's some weird kind of value in that. I can't explain. But,
there is some obscure value in that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, the good news, we've got to wrap up soon here. I am very confident that that, as in this movie, there is hope that the advancements of cyberware and improvements on technology will one day possibly your hearing will be replaced, but even better. Like our vision will even be better. So let's hope for a good future. Fingers crossed.
Yes. Technology.
That, just like in the movie, he did get some. He got some very much got function back, but
yep.
Yeah,
I would have took it. I take it. I would take it. So great movie.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think technology in general is going faster and faster and faster all the time.
Yes.
And so we were even talking about that before the show. So next week, Monday at noon, I don't have my movie pick. I don't always have a movie pick. So but we'll get there. The Sound of Metal, this podcast that you're watching right now, is being released on March 5th. What's happening around March 5th?
Well, 15th. You got 15th.
Oh, sorry, 15th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully COVID will be done.
Well,
no. That's late next year. Yeah, we're recording before Christmas in 2020. We're still in 2020. Oh God, dear God. We're still in 2020, but we're getting out of it soon. And by the time March 15 rolls around, I'm very sure we will at least have one more podcast ready to go, and it'll be released a week Monday.
And just for those of you out there who don't know, all three of us here are healthcare workers. We may be able to do a live show, or a together show